The funeral home smelled like cheap lilies and regret. I stood in the back of the room, not the front, never the front, watching the handful of distant relatives pretend to mourn two people they barely knew. My mother's casket was simple pine, the kind you get when there's no money left for mahogany and brass. My father's, right beside it, was identical. Budget matching set. How fitting. The funeral director kept glancing at me, waiting for me to approach, to cry, to do whatever daughters are supposed to do when both parents die within 3 months of each other. I didn't move. I held my coffee, black, from the gas station across the street because I wasn't paying for the funeral home's refreshments, and I felt nothing. No, that's not true. I felt vindicated. Because 15 years ago, my parents sat me down in our pristine living room and told me they were choosing money over me. They didn't use those words, of course. They dressed it up in phrases like practical decision and your brother's future and you'll understand when you're older. But what they meant was simple: I wasn't worth the investment. My name is Rebecca Chen, and this is the story of how I watched my parents destroy themselves pursuing the very thing they chose over their daughter. And how, when they came crawling back, broken and desperate, I let them fall. I need to take you back to understand. Back to when I was 17 and still believed my parents loved me unconditionally. The Chen family looked perfect on paper. My father, David, was a real estate developer who'd ridden the pre-2008 housing boom to considerable wealth. My mother, Linda, was a former accountant who'd transitioned into managing my father's finances and properties. We lived in a 6-bedroom house in an affluent suburb of Seattle, the kind with a 3-car garage and a landscaping company that came twice a week. I had an older brother, Marcus, who was 19 and a sophomore at Stanford. Pre-med perfect grades. Perfect son. And then there was me. I wasn't perfect. I was good, 3.7 GPA, varsity tennis, volunteer work at the animal shelter, but I wasn't Marcus. I didn't have his driven focus or his ability to absorb information like a sponge. I liked art. I painted. I wanted to study design, maybe architecture, something creative that combined aesthetics with structure. My parents smiled when I talked about it, the way you smile at a child who says they want to be an astronaut. Indulgent. Temporary. The conversation that changed everything happened in March of my senior year. I'd been accepted to Rhode Island School of Design, RISD, one of the best art and design schools in the country. I was ecstatic. I'd also been accepted to the University of Washington with a partial scholarship, a safety school, something practical. My parents called me into the living room on a Saturday morning. That should have been my first warning. Saturday mornings were for Marcus's accomplishments. For discussing his latest research opportunity or his MCAT prep. Saturday mornings were not for me. But I walked in, naive and hopeful, carrying my RISD acceptance letter like a trophy. My father sat in his leather chair, the expensive one from Italy. My mother perched on the sofa, her hands folded in her lap. The body language was wrong. Too formal. Too stiff. "Sit down, Rebecca," my father said. I sat. "We need to discuss your college plans," my mother began. Her voice had that careful quality, the one she used with difficult clients. "We've been looking at the numbers." Numbers. Always numbers with them. "RISD is very expensive," my father said. "Even with the financial aid package they offered, we're looking at about $40,000 a year out of pocket. That's $160,000 over 4 years. I nodded, my stomach starting to twist. "I know it's a lot, but..." "Marcus is applying to medical schools next year," my mother interrupted. "Do you know how much medical school costs?" I didn't. I didn't care. This wasn't about Marcus. "We've made a decision," my father said, and those 5 words, I can still hear the exact tone, the finality, those 5 words ended my childhood. "We're going to fund Marcus's medical education. Fully. Which means we need to be practical about your choices." The room tilted slightly. What does that mean? It means you'll go to the University of Washington, my mother said. With the scholarship, it's manageable. You can study business or economics, something with a real career path. I don't want to study business. My voice sounded small, childish. I hated it. You're 17, my father said. You don't know what you want. This art phase. It's not a phase. We'll pass, and you'll thank us for steering you towards something practical. I looked at my mother, searching for an ally, for any sign that she saw this as unfair. She looked away. What about loans? I asked. I could take out loans for the difference. Absolutely not, my father said. We're not co-signing on $160,000 of debt for an art degree. That's financial suicide. The irony of that statement, given what came later, still makes me laugh bitterly. So you're saying I can't go to RISD? I needed to hear it clearly, needed them to admit what they were doing. My mother sighed, like I was being difficult. We're saying we've prioritized Marcus's education. He's pursuing medicine. That's a guaranteed return on investment. Your father and I have worked hard for our money, and we need to be smart about how we allocate it. Allocate it. Like I was a line item in a budget. Expenses, groceries, utilities, son's medical school, daughter's crushing disappointment. Marcus gets everything, and I get nothing, I said. I wasn't crying, not yet. I was too angry. You're getting a college education, my father snapped. Paid for. Do you know how many kids would kill for that opportunity? You're being ungrateful. I'm being treated like I'm worth less than my brother. The silence that followed was answer enough. My mother looked uncomfortable. My father looked annoyed. This is our final decision, he said. University of Washington. Business program. End of discussion. I stood up. My legs felt shaky. You're choosing money. You're choosing Marcus's future earnings over my dreams because you think he'll make more money as a doctor. That's what this is. That's not, my mother started. Yes, it is. I looked at both of them. You're investors, and you're investing in the child with the better ROI. I left the room before they could respond. I went upstairs, locked my bedroom door, and didn't come out until the next morning. The thing about devastating moments is that life just continues. The sun still rose. I still went to school. I still played tennis and fed the shelter dogs and laughed at my friends' jokes. But something inside me had calcified. Hardened. I accepted the University of Washington offer. I enrolled in the business program. I became what they wanted, practical, focused, economical. But I stopped talking to them. Really talking, I mean. We exchanged information. I need money for textbooks. Your dentist appointment is on Tuesday. The Wi-Fi password changed. Surface. Polite. Empty. My mother noticed first. 3 weeks after the conversation, she knocked on my door around 10 at night. Rebecca? Can I come in? It's open. She entered slowly, carefully, like she was approaching a wounded animal. Maybe she was. I know you're upset, she said, sitting on the edge of my bed. I was at my desk, pretending to study. But you'll see, in a few years, that we made the right choice. I didn't turn around. Okay. You're being childish. This silent treatment. I'm not giving you the silent treatment, I said calmly. I'm just not interested in discussing my feelings with people who've made it clear their financial planning is more important than my aspirations. That's not fair. I finally turned to look at her. You're right. It's not fair. None of this is fair. But it's your decision, and I'm living with it. So let's just move forward. She left, unsatisfied. My father never even tried. Marcus called me a few weeks later. He'd heard about the situation, my mother had told him, framing it as Rebecca being dramatic about college choices. "Hey, Becca," he said, using the nickname I usually loved. Now it felt patronizing. "Mom said you're upset about the whole college thing." "I'm fine. Come on. Talk to me." "What do you want me to say, Marcus? That I understand? That I'm happy for you? I want you to realize that Mom and Dad are doing what's best for the family," he said. "Medical school is expensive, and my future career will make more money than mine. I get it. Everyone gets it. You're the golden child with the golden future, and I'm the daughter who should be grateful for the scraps." "That's not what I'm happy for you," I lied. "Genuinely. I hope medical school is everything you dream of. But I don't want to talk about this anymore." I hung up. He texted a few times after that. I responded with short, non-committal answers. Eventually, he stopped trying. College was fine. I excelled, because I'm not capable of doing things halfway, but I hated every minute of the business curriculum. Marketing strategies, financial analysis, corporate structures. It all felt like learning a language I didn't want to speak. But I learned something valuable during those 4 years. I learned that I was good at understanding what people wanted and how to give it to them. I learned to read patterns in human behavior. I learned that business was just another form of design. You were designing systems, transactions, relationships. And I learned to be completely, utterly self-sufficient. I worked 3 part-time jobs through college. I paid for everything beyond tuition myself: books, food, clothes, entertainment. When I graduated, I had $7,000 saved and 0 debt to my parents beyond the moral obligation that was supposed to come with them funding my basic education. I didn't invite them to my graduation. They came anyway, sat in the back, and left immediately after the ceremony. My mother texted, "Congratulations. Proud of you." 22 characters to sum up 4 years. I moved to Portland for a job at a mid-sized marketing firm. The work was soul-crushing, but it paid well, and I was good at it. Within 2 years, I'd been promoted twice. Within 5, I was a director. Within 8, I'd moved to a better firm with a better title and a salary that would have made my 17-year-old self weep with disbelief. And I did it all alone. My parents and I maintained minimal contact. A phone call on my birthday, always from my mother. A card at Christmas. That's it. They'd ask how work was going. I'd say fine. They'd mention Marcus's achievements, his residency, his research, his engagement to a fellow doctor. I'd say that's nice. Then we'd run out of things to say and hang up. Marcus got married when I was 26. I was invited to the wedding, of course. Family obligation. I went, gave an expensive gift I could afford but they couldn't, my first private fuck you, and left before the reception ended. My parents looked older. My father's hair had gone completely gray. My mother had developed a tightness around her eyes, a permanent tension. They were pleasant to me. Distant. We took a family photo, the 4 of us arranged by the photographer into a facsimile of closeness, and I wondered if anyone could see the truth beneath our smiles. I was 31 when my mother called with the news that changed everything. It was a Tuesday evening in November. I was in my apartment. A beautiful, expensive loft in downtown Portland that I'd bought outright the year before, working on a presentation. My phone rang, Mom's cell. I almost didn't answer. We'd already had our quarterly check-in. But something made me pick up. Rebecca. Her voice was strange. Tight. I need to talk to you about something important. I closed my laptop. What's wrong? It's your father. We've had some financial difficulties. Those words in that order made no sense. My father was David Chen, real estate mogul. The man who'd built an empire on Seattle's housing boom. What kind of difficulties? She took a shaky breath. He made some bad investments. Several years ago, actually, but they've compounded. We're facing bankruptcy. The word hung in the air. Bankruptcy. How is that possible? I asked. Dad's had money for decades. After 2008, things were harder. The market changed. He tried to diversify, invested in some companies that didn't pan out. Then he borrowed against the properties to try to make it back. The interest, the loans, it spiraled. I felt nothing. Or rather, I felt a strange, cold curiosity. Why are you telling me this? Because we might lose the house. And we need. She paused. We need to ask if you could help. There it was. The real reason for the call. Help how? We need about $200,000 to avoid foreclosure and pay off the most critical debts. I know it's a lot, but you're doing so well, and Marcus is still paying off his loans, and... Stop. My voice was calm. Eerily calm. You want me to give you $200,000? A loan, she said quickly. We'd pay you back. With what money? You just said you're bankrupt. We're working on it. Your father has some deals in the pipeline. No. Silence. Rebecca, please. We're desperate. We might lose everything. You made financial decisions, I said, echoing her words from 15 years ago. This is the consequence. You need to be smart about how you allocate your resources. That's not, this is different. We're your parents. And I'm your daughter. Funny how investment priorities shift when you're the one needing the money. You're punishing us for a decision we made when you were 17? Her voice rose, defensive. You went to college. You got an education. You have a successful career. I have a successful career in spite of you, not because of you, I said. I built this life myself. With zero help from either of you beyond the absolute minimum you were legally obligated to provide. We did what we thought was best for the family. You did what was best for Marcus. And yourselves. You treated me like a bad investment, so now I'm treating you the same way. Bad ROI. Poor prospects. Not worth the risk. Rebecca, please. Now she was crying. We made a mistake. We can see that now. But we're family. Family invested in each other, I said. You taught me that. You invested in Marcus because he was worth it. You didn't invest in me because I wasn't. Now you want me to invest in you, but I've run the numbers, and honestly? You're not worth it. I hung up. My hands were shaking. Not from fear or sadness, but from a pure, crystalline rage that had been dormant for over a decade. They'd called me for money. Not to apologize. Not to admit they'd been wrong. They'd called because they needed something from me, just like they'd denied me something I needed from them. The irony was exquisite. My phone rang again immediately. I declined the call. It rang 5 more times that evening. I declined every one. Then my father tried. Then Marcus. I blocked all 3 numbers. The email started the next day. From my mother, Rebecca, please reconsider. We're not asking for ourselves. The house has so many memories. From my father, I made mistakes, but I'm still your father. You owe us at least a conversation. From Marcus, what the hell, Becca? They're going to lose their home, and you're being petty about something that happened over a decade ago? I deleted them all without responding. A week later, a letter arrived at my apartment. Real paper, handwritten, from my mother. Dear Rebecca. Asterisk, I know you're angry. I know we hurt you. But please understand that we were trying to give Marcus the best possible start in his career. We thought you'd understand eventually. We thought you'd see that it worked out, you're successful, happy, asterisk. Asterisk, are you happy? I realize I don't know. I don't know anything about your life beyond the basic facts you share in our brief calls. That's my fault. Our fault, asterisk. Asterisk, but Rebecca, we're drowning. The foreclosure is going through. We've lost most of our savings. Your father's health is suffering, the stress is causing problems with his heart. We're going to have to move into a small apartment, and we don't know if we can afford that for long, asterisk. Asterisk, please. Not for us, but for the family. For the memories. For the little girl who used to paint in the backyard and bring us wildflowers, asterisk. Love. Mom. I read it twice. Then I put it in my shredder and watched the strips of paper fall into the bin. The little girl who painted in the backyard died when she was 17, in a pristine living room, listening to her parents calculate her worth and find it wanting. 3 months passed. I heard nothing from my family. Then, on a Saturday morning in February, my doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I checked the video intercom and saw Marcus standing in the hallway. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, his usually perfect hair unkempt. I considered not answering. But curiosity won. What do you want? I asked through the speaker. Let me in, Becca. Please. 5 minutes. Against my better judgment, I buzzed him up. He entered my apartment and stopped, looking around at the soaring ceilings, the original artwork on the walls, the expensive furniture, the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. I saw him calculate the value, the success, and something like shame crossed his face. Nice place, he said quietly. Thanks. 4 minutes and 30 seconds left. He ran a hand through his hair. They lost the house. They're in a studio apartment in Renton. Dad's working as a consultant for his old competitors, the ones who didn't go bankrupt. Mom's working part-time at H&R Block during tax season. They're barely surviving. Okay. Okay? He stared at me. That's it? Okay? What do you want me to say, Marcus? I want you to help them. You have money. You clearly have money. He gestured at the apartment. 200,000 would barely dent your savings. How do you know what my savings look like? Because I know what you make. I looked up salaries for your position. You could help them easily. You're right, I said. I could. He looked relieved. So you'll? I won't. His face fell. Why? What is wrong with you? Nothing is wrong with me. I'm doing exactly what our parents taught me to do. Making smart financial decisions based on expected returns. They're our parents. They're the people who raised me to understand that family is just another ledger. Credits and debits. Investments and returns. They invested in you and not in me, and it worked out. You're a successful doctor. They made the right call from a purely financial standpoint. This isn't about money. It's always been about money. My voice rose for the first time. That's the entire point. They made it about money when I was 17. They made it about money when they called me begging for a loan. You're making it about money right now by talking about my salary and my savings. I'm talking about family. No, you're not. You're talking about obligation. About how I should feel guilty for having succeeded without their help. About how I should use my money to bail out the people who decided I wasn't worth their money. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then, you're punishing them. No. I'm just not saving them. There's a difference. You're letting them suffer because you're still angry about college. I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. College was just the clearest example of how they saw me. But it was everything, Marcus. Every time you got praised and I got ignored. Every time your achievements were celebrated and mine were trivialized. Every time they planned for your future and treated mine like an afterthought. College was just when they finally admitted it out loud. They were doing their best. Their best wasn't good enough. And now their best isn't good enough to keep them from losing everything. That's not my problem. That's theirs. He looked at me like I was a stranger. Maybe I was. When did you become so cold? He asked. The day I realized that warmth wouldn't change anything. That love, in our family, was conditional. Transactional. I became what they taught me to be, practical. He left without another word. I didn't hear from any of them for a year after that. I assumed they'd given up, moved on, maybe even found stability in their reduced circumstances. I'd occasionally wonder, lying in bed at night, or sitting in a meeting, or walking through a museum, what they were doing. If they were okay. But I never wondered enough to reach out. Then my mother had a stroke. The call came from a hospital social worker, not from Marcus. She'd been admitted 3 days earlier. Severe ischemic stroke. Left side paralysis. Speech difficulties. My father had been with her when it happened, they'd been arguing about bills, and she'd collapsed. The social worker gave me the details in that professional, empathetic tone that healthcare workers develop. My mother was stable. She'd need extensive rehabilitation. My father was listed as next of kin, but he'd asked them to contact me as well. Does she want to see me? I asked. The social worker hesitated. She's having difficulty with communication right now. But your father requested your number. Tell them I received the message. Thank you. I hung up before she could say anything else. My father called 6 times over the next 2 days. I didn't answer. Then he started texting. Your mother is asking for you. Asterisk please, Rebecca. She's scared asterisk. Whatever you think of us, she's still your mother. Asterisk she might not recover fully. Don't let this be how it ends asterisk. That last message did something to me. Not what he intended, but something. I drove to Seattle. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and despair. I found my mother's room on the 4th floor. My father was sitting in a chair beside her bed, holding her hand. He'd aged a decade in the 18 months since I'd last seen him. His face was gaunt, his clothes hung loosely, and his eyes had the hollow look of someone who'd stopped sleeping properly. My mother was worse. The stroke had carved away part of the woman I remembered, leaving behind something diminished. Her face drooped on the left side. Her body was small and frail under the thin hospital blanket. My father looked up when I entered. His expression was complex, relief, fear, hope, resignation, all mixed together. You came, he said. His voice cracked. The social worker called. He nodded. Turned to my mother. Linda. Linda, honey. Rebecca's here. My mother's eyes. The right one sharp, the left one unfocused, found mine. Her mouth moved, trying to form words. What came out was garbled, nonsensical. She's trying to say she's sorry, my father said. She's been trying for days. The speech therapist says it might come back, but it might not. No. It might not. I stood there, looking at my mother, and felt nothing. No surge of forgiveness. No rush of daughterly love. Just the same cold curiosity I'd felt when she first called asking for money. What do you want from me? I asked my father. Nothing. He gestured helplessly at my mother. I wanted you to see her. I wanted her to see you before. Before she dies? She's not dying. But she's not the same. She'll never be the same. And you think I'll feel guilty? Seeing her like this? His face crumpled. I don't know what I think anymore, Rebecca. I just know that we're broken. All of us. And I don't know how to fix it. You can't fix it, I said. Some things, once broken, stay broken. I know we hurt you. He was crying now, tears running down his weathered face. I know we prioritized the wrong things. Made the wrong choices. But we loved you. We do love you. You love the idea of me. The daughter who's supposed to forgive you and take care of you and fill the role you need filled. But you don't love me. You don't even know me. That's not true. When's my birthday? He opened his mouth. Closed it. The answer didn't come. What's my favorite color? What kind of art do I like? What do I do on weekends? Do I have friends? Am I seeing anyone? What makes me happy? Silence. You don't know any of it. Because you never cared to learn. I was just a line item in your family budget, and you allocated your resources elsewhere. My mother made a sound, a desperate, anguished moan. My father gripped her hand. Please, he whispered. Please, Rebecca. Don't do this. Don't leave us like this. I looked at both of them, my father, broken and begging, my mother, trapped in a body that had betrayed her, trying desperately to communicate something she'd never been able to say when she was whole. I'm not the one who left, I said. You left me a long time ago. I'm just finally accepting it. I turned and walked out of the room. Down the hallway. Into the elevator. Through the lobby. To my car. I drove back to Portland without looking back. My mother died 8 months later. Another stroke, this one fatal. The funeral was on a Thursday. I didn't attend. My father sent me a text, * your mother passed away this morning. Funeral is Thursday at 2 p.m. Please come *. I replied, I'm sorry for your loss. He didn't respond. Marcus called me that evening. I answered, surprisingly. You're not coming to Mom's funeral. It wasn't a question. No. You're unbelievable. You know that? She's dead, Becca. Dead. And you can't even pretend to care long enough to show up for 2 hours? I'm not obligated to perform grief I don't feel. She was your mother. She was someone who gave birth to me and then spent the next 2 decades demonstrating that I was less valuable than my brother and less important than her bank account. Now she's gone, and I'm supposed to cry at her funeral and pretend we had a relationship we never had? No. Dad needs you. Dad needs a lot of things. Money. Status. The life he used to have. But what he actually has is the consequences of his own choices. He doesn't get to add me to his list of needs. You're a monster. Maybe. Or maybe I'm just done pretending that biology creates obligation. Either way, I'm not coming to the funeral. He hung up. I blocked his number too. 3 months after my mother's funeral, I got a letter from an estate attorney. My mother had left a will. I was in it. I almost threw the letter away. But that same cold curiosity that had driven me to the hospital made me open it. The will was simple. My mother had divided her possessions, what few she had left, between Marcus, my father, and me. I was to receive her jewelry, some photo albums, and a letter. The jewelry was worthless costume pieces. The albums were full of pictures that made me feel nothing. But the letter. The letter was 17 pages, handwritten in my mother's shaky post-stroke script. It must have taken her months to write. Dear Rebecca. * if you're reading this, I'm gone. I don't know if you came to my funeral. I hope you did, but I understand if you didn't. I understand a lot of things now that I should have understood then. *. I failed you. Your father and I both did. We failed you in the most fundamental way parents can fail a child. We made you feel unloved. Unvalued. Less than *. I could make excuses. I could tell you about how my own parents valued my brother over me, how I was taught that boys were investments and girls were expenses. I could explain that we were terrified of making the wrong financial choices, of not giving Marcus every advantage in his career. I could describe the panic of the 2008 crash, how close we came to losing everything, how that fear drove every decision we made afterward, asterisk. Asterisk, but excuses don't change what we did to you. They don't erase the hurt, asterisk. Asterisk, I watched you build a life without us. I watched you succeed beyond anything we could have imagined. And I felt proud, but also ashamed, because I knew we had nothing to do with your success. You did it alone. You had to do it alone, because we taught you that you couldn't rely on us, asterisk. Asterisk, the stroke gave me a lot of time to think. Time to remember. I remembered the day you found out about RISD. You were glowing. You ran into the kitchen with that acceptance letter and you looked so happy, so full of possibility. And I watched your father and I crushed that possibility in the name of practicality, asterisk. Asterisk, I remembered 100 other moments. Times when you tried to show us your art and we barely looked. Times when you needed us and we were too focused on Marcus's needs. Times when you reached out and we pulled away, asterisk. Asterisk, I don't blame you for refusing to help us. I'm angry at you, I was angry at you, but I don't blame you. You're doing exactly what we taught you to do. We showed you that love has limits, that family has conditions. Now you're showing us the same thing, asterisk. Asterisk, it's justice. Cruel, but just, asterisk. Asterisk, I'm sorry I couldn't say this before the stroke took my words. I'm sorry it took losing everything, my house, my health, my dignity, to understand what I'd lost in you, asterisk. Asterisk, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even know if I deserve the opportunity to ask for it. But I want you to know that I see now what I couldn't see then, you were worth everything. You are worth everything. And not in some financial, transactional sense. You were worth our time, our attention, our unconditional love, asterisk. Asterisk, we failed the investment analogy in more ways than one. Because if we'd invested in you, really invested, not just financially but emotionally, the returns would have been immeasurable, asterisk. Asterisk, but you don't owe us anything. Not money, not forgiveness, not even your presence at my funeral, asterisk. Asterisk, I just wanted you to know, before I leave this world, that I'm sorry. And that I love you. I always loved you, even when I was terrible at showing it, asterisk. Goodbye, my daughter. Mom. I read the letter 3 times. Then I folded it carefully and put it back in the envelope. And then I cried. Not because the letter changed anything. Not because it made me forgive them or regret my choices. But because it was the first time my mother had ever really seen me. And she had to die to do it. My father lasted another 2 years. He never remarried. Never rebuilt his business. He worked his consulting job until his heart finally gave out at 68. Too much stress, too many years of poor choices catching up with him. Marcus called me from the hospital. I was 34, sitting in my office, reviewing a campaign strategy. He's gone, Marcus said without preamble. Dad had a heart attack this morning. They couldn't revive him. I'm sorry. Are you coming to this funeral? I thought about it. Really thought about it. No. He asked about you. At the end. Asked if I thought you'd come. What did you tell him? I told him no. He said he understood. We sat in silence on the phone for a moment. You know what's funny? Marcus said. His voice was strange. Hollow. I paid off my medical school loans last year. $280,000. It took me 12 years. And I realized, somewhere around year 10, that they'd been right. The investment was worth it. I have a great career. Financial security. But I also realized that the cost wasn't just financial. What do you mean? I mean, I'm 36 years old and my relationship with my sister is non-existent. I have parents who died in poverty despite working their entire lives. I have a marriage that's falling apart because I work 80 hours a week to maintain the lifestyle that was supposed to justify all of this. And I don't know if it was worth it. Are you saying you wish they'd chosen differently? I'm saying I wish they'd chosen us. Both of us. I'm saying maybe we all paid too high a price for my medical degree. Another silence. I'm sorry they hurt you, he said finally. I'm sorry I didn't see it then. I'm sorry I didn't stand up for you. It's too late for sorry. I know. But I'm saying it anyway. Okay. Okay. He took a breath. The funeral's on Saturday. I know you won't come. But I'm telling you anyway, in case you change your mind. I won't. I know. He hung up. I sat in my office for a long time after that call, looking out at the city. I thought about my father, dying alone in a hospital. About my mother's 17-page apology. About Marcus finally understanding what had been broken all those years ago. And I felt empty. Not vindicated anymore. Not angry. Just empty. I'm 35 now. My parents have been gone for months. The estate was settled, there was almost nothing left. Some personal effects. A few $1,000s in a savings account, split between Marcus and me. I donated my share to an arts scholarship fund for underprivileged students. I'd like to think my 17-year-old self would appreciate that. Marcus and I exchange emails occasionally. Polite updates. We don't talk about our parents. We don't talk about the past. We're strangers who happen to share DNA and trauma. I'm successful by any conventional measure. Senior vice president now. Beautiful home. Financial security that my parents never achieved. I date casually, travel frequently, have friends who know the surface version of me but not the deep truth. And sometimes, late at night, I wonder if I'm happy. I wonder if the vindication was worth the isolation. If the justice was worth the emptiness. If proving I didn't need them meant I'd never let anyone else in either. My parents chose money over me, and I let them die broke and alone. That's the truth. The simple, undeniable truth. But the more complicated truth is this: in choosing to withhold my help, to let them suffer the consequences of their choices, I also chose something. I chose revenge over reconciliation. Justice over mercy. My pain over their redemption. I don't regret it. I can't regret it, because to regret it would mean accepting that I was wrong, and I don't believe I was wrong. They made their choice, and I made mine. But I do wonder, sometimes, what it cost me. What it's still costing me. I keep my mother's letter in my desk drawer. I've never shown it to anyone. It's the only thing I have from either of them that feels real. Honest. True. And sometimes, when I'm alone in my expensive apartment with my expensive life and my expensive isolation, I take it out and read it again. Not because it changes anything. But because it reminds me that even the people who hurt us most are still people. Flawed. Human. Capable of understanding too late what they should have understood all along. My parents chose money over me. That was their mistake. I chose to let them die broke and alone. That was mine. Both choices were made from pain. Both choices caused more pain. And both choices, in the end, left all of us poorer than we had to be. The funeral home still smells like cheap lilies and regret. I'm still standing in the back, holding my gas station coffee, feeling that strange emptiness where grief should be. But now, finally, I understand something my mother tried to tell me in her letter. There are some investments you can't calculate with math. Some returns that have nothing to do with money. Some failures that cost you everything, even when you think you're winning. I don't know if I'll ever forgive them. I don't know if forgiveness even matters at this point. But I do know this: I survived their choices. I built a life they said was impractical. I became someone they never saw coming. And in the end, that has to be enough. Because it's all I have left. I leave the funeral home before the service ends. I don't need to hear a pastor who never knew my parents talk about eternal rest and loving families. I don't need to shake hands with distant cousins who'll pretend to care for exactly as long as it takes to finish their sympathy casserole. The parking lot is nearly empty. My rental car sits in the back corner, and I'm almost to it when I hear footsteps behind me. Rebecca. I stop. Turn. It's Marcus's wife, Jennifer. We've met exactly 3 times, the wedding, a Christmas dinner 6 years ago, and a chance encounter at a conference. She's still in her black dress, her pregnant belly prominent under the fabric. I didn't know you were pregnant, I say, because it's easier than addressing why I'm leaving early. 7 months. She touches her stomach absently. We haven't announced it widely. After the last 2 miscarriages. Congratulations. Thank you. She shifts her weight, uncomfortable in her heels. Marcus doesn't know I followed you out here. He thinks I'm in the bathroom. Then you should probably get back. I wanted to tell you something. She steps closer, her voice dropping. Marcus talks about you sometimes. Usually after he's had too much to drink. He talks about the guilt. I don't respond. He says he thinks about what would have happened if your parents had split the money differently. Half for his medical school, half for your art school. If maybe they'd all been happier. If maybe you'd all still be a family. Marcus got exactly what he wanted. Did he? She looks back at the funeral home. He's miserable, Rebecca. His marriage is hanging by a thread. He works 100-hour weeks because he's terrified of not living up to the investment they made in him. He has panic attacks about money even though we have plenty. And he lost his entire family in the process, first you, then your parents. That's not my fault. I know. I'm not saying it is. I'm saying. She pauses, searching for words. I'm saying maybe everyone lost. There were no winners in this story. Then why are you telling me this? Because you're about to walk away from the last person who shares your history. And I think you should know that he's not your enemy. He's just another casualty of your parents' choices. I look at her, this woman I barely know, carrying my future niece or nephew, trying to salvage something from the wreckage of my family. Jennifer, I appreciate what you're trying to do. But some things are too broken to fix. Maybe. But you won't know unless you try. She walks back toward the funeral home, one hand supporting her lower back. I watch her go, then get in my car and drive. But I don't go to the airport. Instead, I find myself driving through the old neighborhood. The house where I grew up sold 3 years ago. New owners painted it a different color, pale blue instead of gray, and added solar panels. The maple tree in the front yard is bigger. The landscaping is different, more modern. I park across the street and sit there, engine off, staring at a place that no longer belongs to my memories. I was happy here once. Before the numbers started mattering more than the people. Before I understood that value could be calculated and compared. Before I learned that love had limits. I remember being 9, painting on the back patio while my mother gardened nearby. She'd look over occasionally, smile at whatever mess I was making, and go back to her roses. My father would come home from work and toss a baseball with Marcus, and I'd join in sometimes, and he'd adjust his throws for my smaller hands. When did it change? Was there a specific moment, or was it gradual? A slow shift from parents who loved their children to parents who saw their children as investments. Or maybe it was always there, and I just didn't see it until the RISD letter forced them to show their hand. A woman emerges from the blue house, young, early 30s, carrying a toddler on her hip. She sees me sitting across the street and waves uncertainly. I wave back, start my car, and leave. Some places stop being yours long before you stop belonging to them. I don't go straight to the airport. I drive to the University of Washington campus instead, parking near the business school where I spent 4 miserable years. The buildings look the same. Students hurry between classes, clutching coffee and backpacks, looking stressed and alive and full of possibility. I wonder how many of them are here because it's where they want to be, and how many are here because it's where someone else decided they should be. I walked to the art building. A place I rarely visited during my time here, as if avoiding it would make the loss hurt less. It's larger than I remember, a newer wing added since I graduated. Through the windows, I can see studios full of students working on projects, walls covered with paintings and drawings and designs. A girl sits on the steps outside, sketching in a large pad. She's maybe 19, completely absorbed in her work. I watch her for a moment, remembering what that felt like. That complete immersion. That sense of creating something from nothing. "Excuse me," I say. She looks up, startled. "Sorry to interrupt. I was just wondering what you're working on." She relaxes slightly, shows me the sketch. It's an architectural drawing, a building that seems to blend organic and geometric forms. It's good. Really good. "Are you an architecture major?" I ask. "Design. I want to do architecture eventually, but I'm starting with general design principles." She grins. "My parents wanted me to do engineering, but I convinced them this was a compromise." "Smart. Are you in the program?" "I was. Long time ago. Different program." I gesture to her sketch. "You're talented. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise." She looks confused but pleased. "Thanks." I leave her to her work and walk back to my car, feeling something I haven't felt in years, regret. Not for the choices I made with my parents, those I'd make again. But regret for the artist I never became. For the paintings I never painted. For the buildings I never designed. I was so focused on succeeding in spite of my parents that I never stopped to question whether success in their world counted as success at all. The airport is quiet on a Thursday afternoon. I sit at my gate, waiting for the boarding call, and find myself scrolling through my phone to a folder I haven't opened in years. Photos. Not many. I'm not sentimental. But there are some. One from my high school graduation, me in my cap and gown, smiling for the camera. My parents are in the background, slightly out of focus. My mother's hand is raised, mid-gesture. My father is looking at his phone. One from Marcus's wedding. The family photo. We're arranged carefully, my father and mother in the center, Marcus and Jennifer on one side, me on the other. We're all smiling. We all look like strangers. One I took myself, 5 years ago, standing in front of the house I'd just bought. My first property. The accomplishment I was most proud of. I'm alone in the photo. I'm alone in most of my photos. I think about Jennifer's words, maybe everyone lost. There were no winners in this story. She's right, but not in the way she thinks. Because I did win, I proved I didn't need them, proved I could succeed on my own terms, proved their assessment of me was wrong. But winning meant being alone. Winning meant cutting off the only people who shared my history. Winning meant building a life so independent that there's no room for anyone to really matter. My mother's letter is in my carry-on bag. I've been carrying it with me for 3 years now, like a talisman. Or maybe a punishment. I take it out, read it again. You were worth everything. You are worth everything. Too little, too late. That's what I've always thought about this letter. A deathbed confession that changes nothing. But sitting here in the airport, watching families say goodbye and reunite, watching people cry and laugh and hold each other, I wonder if I'm wrong. Maybe it's not too little or too late for me. Maybe it's too little and too late for her, but not for me. Maybe I'm still young enough to become someone who knows how to let people in. Who knows how to invest in relationships that don't have guaranteed returns. Who knows how to love without calculating the cost. I don't get on the plane. I walk back through the airport, out to the rental car, and drive back into the city. I find a coffee shop with good Wi-Fi, order an espresso, and open my laptop. I search for art classes. Evening courses for adults. Nothing professional, nothing serious. Just exploration. Permission to try again. There's a watercolor course starting next week at a community center in Portland. Tuesdays and Thursdays, 7 to 9 p.m. I register before I can talk myself out of it. Then I do something harder. I unblock Marcus's number. I don't call him. I'm not ready for that. But I send a text, I'm sorry I left early. I wasn't ready. Maybe we could talk sometime. Not about them. Just about us. I send it before I can delete it. 3 dots appear almost immediately. Then, I'd like that. That's all. 4 words. But they feel like more. I fly home the next morning. My apartment is exactly as I left it, beautiful, expensive, empty. I walk through the rooms, seeing them differently now. Perfect furniture that no one but me ever sits on. Art on the walls that no one but me ever sees. A guest room that's never had a guest. I built a fortress. That's what this is. Protection from ever being hurt the way my parents hurt me. From ever depending on anyone the way I depended on them. But fortresses are lonely. I pour myself a glass of wine and stand at the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at the Portland skyline. The city lights are beautiful from up here. Distant. Safe. My phone buzzes. It's Marcus, I'm coming to Portland next month for a medical conference. Maybe we could have dinner? I stare at the message for a long time. Every instinct I've developed over the past 15 years tells me to say no. To maintain the walls. To stay safe in my fortress. But I think about that girl on the university steps, sketching her dreams. I think about my mother's 17-page apology, written with a hand that barely worked, trying to say what she'd never said when she could. I think about my father, dying with my name on his lips, wondering if I'd come. I think about Jennifer's words, there were no winners. Yes, I text back. I'd like that. The first watercolor class is awkward. I'm the youngest person there by at least a decade. The instructor is a retired art teacher who speaks in soft, encouraging tones and doesn't ask why a woman in expensive clothes is taking a beginner's course at a community center. We paint flowers. Simple exercises. Mine is terrible, too much water, muddy colors, proportion all wrong. But I'm painting. For the first time in 17 years, I'm painting. Don't worry about perfection, the instructor says, stopping by my easel. Watercolor is about learning to work with mistakes. The paint goes where it wants, and you have to adapt. I look at my muddy, imperfect flower and feel something crack open in my chest. Maybe that's the lesson I was supposed to learn. Not how to prevent mistakes or punish people for making them, but how to adapt when things don't go according to plan. How to find beauty in imperfection. How to let the water run where it wants and make something from the mess. Marcus comes to Portland 3 weeks later. We meet at a restaurant downtown. Neutral territory, nothing too intimate or too casual. He looks better than he did at the funeral. Still tired, still carrying the weight of everything, but steadier somehow. You look good, he says when I arrive. So do you. We sit. Order drinks. The silence is uncomfortable but not hostile. I started painting again, I say, because it's easier than talking about our parents or the years of silence or the hurt we've both been carrying. Watercolors. I'm terrible at it. He smiles slightly. I remember you used to paint all the time. You were good. I was 17. Everything looks good through nostalgia. No, you were actually good. I used to be jealous, actually. That you had something you loved that much. I chose medicine because it made sense, because it was expected. But you had passion. Had being the operative word. You're doing it again now. Baby steps. Community center classes. Nothing serious. It doesn't have to be serious to matter. He pauses. Jennifer's about to have the baby. 2 more months. Are you scared? Terrified. I keep thinking about Mom and Dad. About how they raised us. I don't want to make their mistakes, but I don't know if I know how to do it differently. The fact that you're thinking about it means you're already doing it differently. We talk for 2 hours. About his work, my work, the baby, the watercolor classes. We don't talk about our parents until dessert arrives, and even then it's Marcus who brings it up. I read Mom's letter, he says quietly. The one she left you. Dad gave me a copy before he died. I freeze. You had no right. I know. He shouldn't have given it to me. But he did, and I read it, and... He stops, struggling. She was right. About all of it. We broke something, and I don't know if we can fix it, but I want to try. Why? The word comes out harsher than I intend. Why now? Why after everything? Because I'm about to be a father, and I realize I don't want my kid to grow up the way we did. Comparing, competing, feeling like love is something you have to earn. And I can't teach them differently if I can't do it differently myself. So I'm practice? A trial run before the real thing? No. You're my sister. And I miss you. The simplicity of it breaks something in me. Not all the way. Not completely. But enough. I miss you too, I whisper. We don't fix everything that night. We don't fix anything, really. But we start talking. Regular texts, the occasional phone call, plans to visit after the baby comes. It's strange, learning to have a brother again. We're cautious with each other, like people who've been burned learning to trust fire again. But we're trying. The watercolor class turns into a painting group. 5 of us from the original class decide to keep meeting, working on our own projects, giving each other feedback. I'm still terrible, but I'm getting less terrible. And more importantly, I'm enjoying it. I paint my parents' house from memory. Not the blue version with the solar panels, but the gray version from my childhood. I paint the backyard where I used to work, the patio, my mother's rose garden. I paint my father reading the newspaper at the breakfast table. I paint Marcus throwing a baseball. I paint the family we used to be, before everything broke. It's not good. It's amateur and sentimental and technically flawed. But it's mine, and it matters. Marcus and Jennifer's daughter is born on a Tuesday in June. Sophia Marie. 8 pounds, 3 ounces. Perfect. I fly to Seattle the day after, bring gifts I spent too much time choosing, and hold my niece for the first time in the hospital room. She's so small. So fragile. So full of possibility. She looks like you, I tell Marcus. Poor kid. But he's smiling, looking at his daughter with an expression I've never seen on his face before. Pure, uncomplicated love. Jennifer is exhausted but radiant. Do you want to be Aunt Becca or Aunt Rebecca? She asks. I didn't think I'd be either. Well, you are. So choose. Becca, I say softly. Aunt Becca. I stay in Seattle for 3 days. I help Jennifer with middle-of-the-night feedings. I hold Sophia while Marcus sleeps. I listen to them panic about every little thing and assure them that they're doing fine. And I realize something, I want this. Not the baby specifically, but the connection. The messiness of caring about people who can hurt you. The risk of investment without guaranteed returns. I'm 36 now. A year has passed since my parents' funeral. I still live in Portland, still have my high-powered job, still have my expensive apartment. But I also have a painting corner set up by the windows. I have a brother I talk to weekly. I have a niece who smiles when she sees me on video calls. I have a painting group that meets every Thursday. I'm dating someone, a teacher named David who knows about my family history and doesn't try to fix it or minimize it. He just listens. He's teaching me that it's okay to need people. That vulnerability isn't weakness. Last week, I painted something different. Not a memory, not the past, but an imagining. I painted the RISD campus. I painted myself at 19, walking through it with a portfolio under my arm. I painted the person I might have been. And then I painted her older, still creating, still passionate, but also surrounded by people. A family that chose differently. A life built on art instead of business. It's fantasy, of course. That life never existed. That Rebecca never existed. But this Rebecca, the one who survived her parents' choices and her own choices and all the pain between. This Rebecca is learning to create something new. Not from the ashes of what was lost, but alongside it. I keep my mother's letter framed now, on my desk in my apartment. Not as punishment or reminder, but as evidence. Proof that people can change. That understanding can come even too late. That words matter, even when they can't fix anything. My parents chose money over me, and I let them die broke and alone. That's still true. I didn't save them. I didn't forgive them before they died. I don't regret my choices. But I'm learning to live with the complexity of it. To hold both truths, that they hurt me deeply, and that they were human. That I was justified in my anger, and that anger isn't a good foundation for a life. That justice and mercy don't have to be opposites. I'm learning to paint with watercolors, to work with the mess, to let the water run where it wants and make something beautiful from the mistakes. I'm learning that some investments pay dividends you can't calculate. That some returns take years to materialize. That some losses are permanent, but that doesn't mean nothing can grow in their place. I'm learning to be a sister again. An aunt. Maybe someday, a partner. Maybe someday, a mother myself, though that thought still terrifies me. I'm learning that being broken doesn't mean being destroyed. That you can acknowledge the damage while still building something new. My parents chose money over me. I chose vindication over reconciliation. Both choices left scars that will never fully heal. But I'm 36 years old, and I'm finally learning that I don't have to be defined by their choices or mine. That I can be someone new. Someone who knows pain but isn't ruled by it. Someone who understands betrayal but isn't paralyzed by it. Someone who paints muddy, imperfect flowers at a community center and calls her brother on Thursdays and holds her niece and feels, for the first time in 17 years, like maybe, just maybe, she's enough. Not because of what she achieved or what she proved or what she survived. But because she's learning to choose differently. To invest in things that matter. To take risks on people who can hurt her. To paint, even badly, because the act of creation is more important than the product. To live, even imperfectly, because being alive means being vulnerable. To try, even scared, because trying is how you build a life worth living. The funeral home is behind me now. The cheap lilies and the regret and the empty chairs. Ahead of me is Thursday's painting group. Saturday's video call with Sophia. Next month's dinner with Marcus and Jennifer. Next year's possibilities. Ahead of me is a life I'm still learning to build. Messy. Imperfect. Beautiful. Like watercolor. Like forgiveness. Like love.